The morning sun had just begun to spill its golden light across the marble headstones when Armand Vale saw them, two tiny figures kneeling before his son's grave, their small hands folded tightly, their heads bowed as if carrying a grief far too heavy for their fragile shoulders. The billionaire who had negotiated billion-dollar mergers without blinking suddenly felt his heartbeat falter. No one visited this section of the cemetery at this hour. No one except him. Yet there they were, two identical twin girls, whispering prayers at the grave of the boy he had lost, the boy he could not save. Before we step into this story of loss, redemption, and unexpected miracles, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whisper Tales 3 if you believe in kindness and second chances. Stories like this remind us that even the coldest hearts can find warmth again. Armand Vale had built his empire from the ashes of poverty. At 42, he was known as the steel-hearted tycoon of the tech world, a single father who balanced boardrooms and bedtime stories with the precision of a strategist. After his wife passed away during childbirth complications, his entire world had narrowed to one person, his son, Rayan. The boy had been sunlight in human form, forever curious, forever smiling, forever asking questions that made even the most exhausted day worth enduring. Armand's penthouse overlooked the sea, but it was Rayan's laughter that made it feel like home. Then came the accident, a careless driver, a rainy afternoon, a phone call that shattered everything. The day Rayan was buried, the world lost its color. Armand attended meetings with hollow eyes. He signed contracts without reading them. He withdrew from charity events and family friends. His mansion grew silent, echoing only with the ghost of a child's footsteps that no longer ran across its marble floors. Each morning, like a ritual of penance, Armand visited the cemetery before work. It was the only place where he allowed himself to break. And now, months later, two small girls in worn dresses knelt at Rayan's grave as if they belonged there. Armand stood frozen under the shade of a blooming jacaranda tree watching them. Their hair was neatly braided, though their clothes hinted at modest means. They could not have been older than 8. One of them clutched a small bouquet of wildflowers, the kind that grew untended near sidewalks. The other held what looked like a folded piece of paper. They were not playing. They were not wandering. They were praying with the intensity of children who understood loss too well. Armand approached slowly, his polished shoes crunching softly against the gravel path. The girls did not notice him at first. Their voices were barely audible, trembling with sincerity. He caught fragments of their words, gratitude, protection, and a promise to be brave. His chest tightened. When they finally looked up and saw him, fear flickered across their faces. They rose together, instinctively holding hands. Armand's voice, unused to gentleness, came out softer than he expected. He asked why they were here, why they prayed at his son's grave. The twins exchanged glances, and one stepped forward, offering the folded paper with shaking fingers. Armand unfolded it carefully. The paper was creased and smudged, but the handwriting was unmistakable. It was Rayan's. His son had always insisted on carrying small notes in his backpack, messages to himself, drawings, half-written dreams. This one was dated a week before the accident. The note explained that he had met two girls named Alara and Samin outside his school gate. They had been waiting for their mother, who worked as a cleaner in nearby offices. Rayan had noticed they often skipped lunch. He had begun sharing his meals, sneaking extra sandwiches from home. The note described how he wanted to help them more, how he had promised to convince his father to support their education. At the bottom, in uneven letters, he had written, "Dad says we can change the world if we try." Armand's knees buckled. The world blurred as tears he had denied for months finally broke free. His son, even in his short life, had been building bridges Armand had never seen. While Armand was chasing expansion deals, Rayan was quietly expanding kindness. The twins explained that their mother had fallen ill recently. Before that, Rayan had been their only friend. They did not know he had died until weeks later. When they found out, they began visiting his grave every Sunday morning to pray for him, just as he once prayed for their family when their mother struggled to pay rent. They believed that good souls could still hear love spoken aloud. Armand felt a crushing mix of guilt and awe. He had thought himself a devoted father, yet he had never fully grasped the depth of his son's heart. Rayan had inherited his determination but used it for something far greater than profit. That day, instead of heading to the office, Armand drove the twins home. The building they lived in stood at the edge of the city, its paint peeling, its stairwell dim. Their mother, Farida, looked startled to see a man of Armand's stature at her door. Pride flickered in her eyes, but exhaustion overshadowed it. She had been working double shifts before illness forced her to stop. Medical bills piled high on a small wooden table. Armand saw, perhaps for the first time, the invisible threads connecting his world to theirs. The skyscrapers he owned were cleaned by hands like Farida's. The technology he sold was assembled by workers who rode crowded buses at dawn, and his son had seen all of this with a clarity he had lacked. Within weeks, Armand arranged medical treatment for Farida. He set up an education fund for Alara and Samin. But more than that, he founded the Rayan Hope Initiative, a foundation dedicated to supporting children from underprivileged families. He visited schools personally. He listened. He remembered. His business empire remained, but it no longer defined him. His son's quiet compassion became the compass guiding every decision. The cemetery visits did not stop. Now, however, they were different. On bright mornings, Armand no longer knelt alone. The twins often joined him, their laughter sometimes breaking through tears as they shared stories about Rayan. Flowers replaced silence, sunlight replaced shadows. Grief never truly vanished, but it transformed. It became purpose. 1 year later, on the anniversary of Rayan's passing, hundreds gathered for the inauguration of a community center built in his name. Children ran across its courtyard, their joy echoing like music. Armand stood at the entrance, not as a billionaire, but as a father who had finally understood his son's greatest lesson, that wealth means nothing unless it lifts others. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Your engagement helps stories like this reach more people who might need a reminder that hope still exists. And before we end, I have a special request. Comment the word hope if you believe that even in the deepest grief, something beautiful can grow. As the sun dipped lower that evening, casting a warm glow over the cemetery, Armand placed his hand against the cool marble of his son's grave. He no longer felt only loss, he felt connection. Rayan's life, though brief, had rippled outward in ways Armand could never have imagined. 2 little girls once praying in secret now had futures filled with possibility. A grieving father once drowning in silence now carried a mission that would outlive him. Sometimes, miracles do not come as angels in the sky. Sometimes they come as twin girls whispering prayers in the morning light, reminding a broken heart that love, once given, never truly dies.